Good morning and welcome to the Skeinz Diaries. It is Marie here today, and I know that Ethan's laughing at me off camera because he can see my face. I need people to let me know whether they can hear me because I just got a pop-up saying that people won't be able to hear me. So if you let me know, that would be great. So if you come on saying, I can see you, but I can't hear you, that would be really good, and we can start this thing again. But if you can hear me, you're with the Skeinz Diaries. It's episodes 174. It is the 7th of the 7th of July. You're here with Marie, who's all over the show this morning, but that's okay because I'm not the only one that's all over the show this morning. Hey, Jeanette, can you hear me? Tell me if you can hear me. And then before I get Ethan on, we can, everyone say good morning. Good morning, everybody. It's all good. Everyone's coming in. Let me know if you can hear me. Oh, you can hear. Great. All right, that's good. Praise. There we go. Right, so that's good. Which means that I can bring on, our favourite person, the first Thursday of every month. Hello, my friend.
Hello.
How are you?
There we go. It's a little big there for a second.
A little bit bigger. I know. A little bit.
Good morning,
bigger.
everyone. Oh, I'm so sorry to what I'm about to do, but I have to wipe my camera. I can't live like this.
I know. Ethan's just rushed in. He's been at the dye house dyeing, and it's so funny because usually that's me on a Monday rushing in, just so like completely disorganized.
Oh my god.
How are you this morning? How's life down in Outlaw HQ? Chilly?
Wet. It's a little wet this morning, but that's the nature of being in the dye house. As I've said to several other people today, like there's just going to be water on the floor. We just have to move on.
Yeah. Did you not know that about dye houses?
Oh no, I did. I went to Green Matter Dye.
Yeah, I was just going to say you would have not been aware of that.
Yeah, no, I was aware, but just every so often there's just like, a hose decides it's going to go on its own journey and escape the clamp. And we've all lived that before if you've worked in a dye house or anywhere with water.
And of course we've got in-floor drainage, because of such. Yeah.
We have a lot of rubber mats. Anyway,
but it is really exciting because so what we're talking about is, in case you're unaware, is that there is Outlaw HQ now have their own dye house, woohoo, and they're starting to do their own in-house limited edition colours, which is super exciting. So yeah, it is fun, isn't it? Isn't it?
It actually is quite fun. So our good mutual friend Peter, who loves us and also sometimes I think stares at us and is like, what are these two coming up with today? Poor Peter. Anyway, our dear friend Peter assured me that this would be an easy process. And I've come to trust Peter quite a bit over the years, and I've watched other people dye yarn commercially, so I knew that it would be kind of a thing. Like once you get going, it's not actually that. It's tricky to say this to people. Like it's certainly not easy to set up. But once you're set up and rolling, it actually starts to get in pretty smooth sailing because it's quite straightforward. It's a lot like actually baking or cooking.
I was exactly about to say that. It's like you follow a recipe, and then once you actually get really good at it, that's when you know that you can make modifications and deviations, and that's when the fun starts to happen.
So the good news is we actually have both our Rebel Lights, our fingering weight base, and our Rebel, the worsted weight. They're sitting sneakily just off camera. I'm not going to lie to all of you. I might show Marie them after we're done talking because I can't show all of you till Saturday once they're labeled. But we will have a color on each of them, which is really, really exciting this weekend. Because normally it's been a little bit of like, oh, we got one done. And I'm scouring next week's batch as we speak. And by I'm scouring, I mean the vat's doing it and Helen's babysitting it. Poor Helen. So that's been my morning. I kind of crack in these days a little bit earlier. One of us kind of rushes down there and you kind of start getting everything set up, and then somebody else comes in and starts scanning, and then the person who started the process goes for a break, and it's just kind of a nice rolling thing. And there's something really satisfying about making your own yarn.
Yeah.
Now we don't spin this. Another mutual good friend of ours, Wool Yarns, the delightful Andy, who's hell bent on saving wool and spun yarn. Bless him. He spins the Rebel for us, and then we dye it, and it's just,
Yeah.
It's
And
been a journey.
when you hear Ethan say scour, before you think, oh my gosh, it's in a woolen spun process, the way the
Yeah.
process is, it goes through like a full continuous process. But there are very fine mists and oils that they apply to the fiber as it goes through the process to allow it to go through the process smoothly. And then it all comes out onto cone at the end, which means that those residues need to be essentially just soaked off before you can apply dyes with them. So that's what Ethan refers. Whereas scouring for us is basically cleaning the shit off it. So it's not the same.
No,
it's
sorry, guys.
clean. It's just been,
Scouring in my world involves about a shot, like 30 milliliters of like dish soap, essentially.
Yeah.
That's all you do. You just check. It's a non-foaming dish soap that comes in you need 30 mils of it at a time, and it comes in a 200-liter barrel.
Yeah, you'll have it for a while.
Yeah, it'll never stop being amusing the day that they call to be like, oh, do you have your forklift there to receive this?
But you know what? That stuff, you should actually sell that stuff in at HQ because it's perfect for blocking, because you need that to break the surface tension, you see, and it's just ideal, and it doesn't foam. So it's ideal. I know the stuff you're using. It's good. Anyway, we're digressing.
Anyway,
the
good news is this is apparently how I dress to dye things. I whip up a shawlography and throw on a gothic pullover and rock on down to the dye house, because there's actually not very much better than wool when you're actually dyeing stuff, thankfully, because even when wet, it doesn't suck to wear.
Exactly. And there's just so much. So gothic, wow, gone.
Yeah. So that was 5 minutes, or actually 29 minutes. We did time it. So we lost a color here at HQ in 29 minutes. None of us were right about what we thought would go first. I was convinced it would be Jekyll for us.
Same.
I was certain it would be Jekyll, and it was Keats.
I know. We were 90 minutes, just under 90 minutes done and dusted for everything.
For everything, yeah. We had a little bit lingering around. I believe that literally the last 9 balls went yesterday. So we are officially fully out of Gothic. It's all off the website. I put the Nicks back up on the website, our little bits and bobs of Nicks back up, but Gothic was really exciting and fun this year. It was a cool year to do 2 special editions, which is not our usual modus operandi here. We're going to probably stick to 1 going forward, but yeah, Gothic was a blast. I'm going to be making a Penguono in Gothic starting next week. As soon as I have this thing off the needles, he says a year later. And then we're just going to be doing some fun stuff to get people knitting up their Gothic. And I know this sounds crazy, but it's almost time to start talking about Outlaw October. And you're sitting down, so I don't have to tell you to sit down. Believe it or not, we already planned the categories.
Wow.
I know. Not
wow,
to mention,
that's
we already put
organized.
in our Christmas Advent orders and have sorted our Christmas promotions. So, I mean, honestly, who knows? Outlaw HQ. It turns out when Deb and I have time, we actually do things. It's shocking.
And it is, so with Gothic, I talked about actually in the newsletter this last week, my Ever After cowl, which is just a really simple cowl, and that's and I just wanted to talk about really simple. I went a trip on memory lane, right? So I actually didn't grab it; it's sitting on we've got a new yarn called Nightfall coming out, just 4 colors. It's a one of these new product development things that we've had on the bubble for about years, like literally 2 years. I think it was spun. The yarn was spun forever ago, and it was just literally sitting on tubes, and it just never went any further, and because there was always other things coming up, like COVID. And finally it got off, and we ran some colors over it, and the first color we're just twisting off here at the shop. And so I wanted to sort of knit it. You know how sometimes you look at something on the hand cord and you think, I don't know whether I love it. So I thought, well, no. And so that cowl, because it's a simple feather and fan variant, is a great way to see how a printed yarn is going to do stuff because of the yarn overs, and you're not going to get that sort of standard pooling. Like, it will give you a nice little...
It'll break it up instead of stacking.
It'll break it up, yeah. So instead of just doing like a little swatch, because the cowl takes 1 skein, it's a 1 skein wonder, I thought, oh, for goodness sake, Marie, just make a cowl. Is it, by the time I faff around and do the swatch and, lay the swatch out and block it and do all of that, well, I may as well have spent twice the time
Yeah.
in making the cowl. So I did that, and actually, and it was one of those things that knitted up so much nicer than what it looked on the hank. So it's great. So I talked about that cowl during the week. And of course, I've got a number, that cowl is perfect for a single ball of Bohemia. Like
Yeah.
one, and how often have you just got that one ball, or you've got a ball left over, or
I have a ball of Austin in my stash, so I feel that pain.
yeah, exactly. And this is just perfect. And you just pop it on. It's like a neat little neck warmer, and it's just so good. So it was, it's just a nice thing to talk about. So I
Yeah.
talked about that this week, and those that got those single skeins, or Gothic or Nyx or any
I will
couple.
say, speaking
Perfect.
of One Skein Wonders, the hat
Mm,
that I'm wearing, this is my Patch It Up hat, and it is also a One Skein Gothic Wonder,
yeah.
or a One Skein ball of any DK weight yarn wonder. It's just a 1x1 rib. It does come out of a tubular cast on. Hold your surprise for those of you at home. And it's a super simple hat with some great crown shaping and a spot to pop a patch on it. Mine says Karen gets you nowhere. A friend made it for me. But any patches that you've got kicking around, or you can just eliminate, you don't have to do, believe it or not, I know this is going to shock everyone at home that Marie and I are about to make a suggestion that you modify a pattern that one of us wrote. If you just want a plain rib beanie, just don't knit the section to put the patch on.
Just live
There
it,
you go.
basically.
Yeah, we helped. We're here to
And
help.
having just done a tubular bind on and cast off, which I
Yeah.
have just recently, yeah, it is actually, it is such a nice edge for the faffing about. I will concede. I was like, okay, all right, yeah, because I hadn't done one for eons,
Yeah,
eons
but
and
once you
eons.
get into it, now, I mean, and I don't, so for those of you playing along from home, I am not a fan of the Italian style long tail tubular cast on. I don't do that. I do a provisional tubular cast on.
Yes, that's the one I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's such a more consistent result. And you don't I have several friends who have started knitting with the tail, because your tail for a long tail, a tubular cast on, is so much longer than a regular one.
Yeah.
So I'm just a huge fan of the provisional tubular cast on. I use a provisional cast on in all 3 of my hat patterns, actually. They all feature a provisional cast on. Now this one's a bit of a nightmare, I'm not gonna lie, because it's knit with DK weight yarn held double. So this is a really cool little number, and it has a really interesting construction, and you finish up at the top and you graft it shut, and the cables actually form the top shaping. So this little portion here gets pulled in by the twin cables so that it forms a final shape without losing that tension. So it's actually, I took a sock toe and stuck it on a hat.
But it also means that it doesn't pinch.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So because it has that extra gusset fabric there on the side, it actually enables it to stay flat as it rounds out. And it works like ribbing on the side. The cables and the reverse stockinette portion function like that. And that's how it goes. And this one starts from a 2x2, from a 1x1 tubular cast on. And then you work through, and it actually has instructions of how you fade, because this is knit in Le Bien Aimé. So this is my Queen hat, spelled Queeng. This is going back up onto Ravelry as a single pattern because I finally got the rights back to it.
Lovely.
And so I'm just resetting it so that I can put it up. It's been tech edited and tested ad nauseum. So this is a little wee cable that I developed. And like most things in life, you think you've come up with a unique idea, and 5 minutes later you see it in a Japanese stitch dictionary, which I just did this year. I was like, oh, because I'm going to tell everyone something. There's no new ideas in knitting. We hate to break it to you. They've all been used. They're gone. So this is a fun, great one. So this you could do this using 2 100-gram skeins or 3 50-gram balls, and it produces this hat. So this is a great way to use up leftovers as well. You can fade it however you want. So this is a fade from end to end. It's easier to see if I roll the cuff down. And what you do to do the fade is you actually drop one strand of yarn and pick up a second one. So it's a marled fading technique instead of trying to do one of those wacky, like knit 5 rows, skip 5 rows, stand on your head, pray to someone. Now, of course, my other hat that's gone through testing, and I'm just trying to actually, if anyone's wondering what's holding up this getting published and that getting published, it's actually the schematic. Trying to find someone to do a vector line drawing at the moment. Our usual friend who would do this for me is not available for personal reasons. So I have yet to sit long enough with InDesign to make a vector line drawing. So just live with it. But if you don't put up one, people get real mad. So this is a hat that uses a worsted weight. So you could use Bohemia for this again, or Bohemia light held double or Little Bandit held double, or you can mix and match between them. Also, if you've got Southlander Sport or Southlander Bulky sitting around at home, this is your friend, as long as you don't mind making baubles. And this has what I call a reversed Trinity stitch. So I took the idea of Trinity stitch and I mixed it together with a double moss stitch so that it's offset and stacked like a double moss stitch, but it's using the Trinity stitch technique. So instead of getting knit stitch bumps on the right side, you get purl stitch bumps on the right side.
Ooh. And Charles is actually in the house, so he'll be very excited to see about baubles, because I know Charles is very fond of a bauble.
Well, I found a love for a bauble, and I like a big chunky cable personally. I like a big chunky cable, in case anyone's wondering. And the other thing is, this is a swatch cap for a sweater design that is nearly finished. So what's great about this is you can swatch with this, make sure that you've gotten good gauge. It starts from a provisional cast on. And then you just undo the provisional cast on and knit two together all the way around. And there's not even a turning row because it's just nice and dense. So it holds its shape all on its own. And this is just a great, fun little thing. And again, it features some of my weird, my weird and wonderful crown shaping. So the crown shaping is charted. The whole hat is charted. All of my most things I design are charted. I should warn everyone in advance. I don't do written instructions because I can't be bothered. But the I could lie, but this is the truth. The cable actually does the decreasing as well. So the cable doesn't just get smaller at strategic points in between the crosses. You decrease away the stitches. So that's what produces the shaping.
Nothing tough love.
Yeah.
No written instructions because I can't be bothered.
Look, it's 2022. Let's read charts. We're going to do it as a group. It's going to be a good, fun time. We're all going to love it.
Well, one of the things that I mentioned that, like, we had about 30 seconds before we came on this morning. But one of the things I pulled together this morning was one of my favorite designers. And actually, so I think you're working on the sleeve of what you're working on. So are you working on Hiroko's new, is that what you're working on?
No, Hiro's new cardigan is actually too difficult to transport.
Right.
I knit so there's two versions of it, and I knit one of the slouchy ones. So mine is about double the size of. So
we're talking about the new, is it Skip? What was it called?
Kote. Kote is the new one. Sode is the first, and there is future exciting news on the Sode front as well. Everybody should stay tuned.
And so Ethan was one of the test knitters, but he didn't quite get his completed.
No, because I also tech edit the pattern.
Yes, exactly. So, it's okay. So that was cool. But so if you haven't, it's beautiful. And if you haven't had a chance to have a look, that's from Hiroko Payne.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you're recognizing the name, she is also
Fox Thoughts.
Fox Thoughts, yeah.
Which I have made too.
Exactly. So that got me to thinking, right? So it got me to thinking in terms of color, because we're here in the dead of winter. I know our Northern Hemisphere friends aren't. You're all blistering away in flip-flops and, super hot. Down here, it's not. But there's some, color. It's great to see color back. And in Hiroko, I think, particularly with that Fox Thoughts, it was like she really threw down the gauntlet to something.
It was definitely amazing. She's one of those people where everything she does is clever to the point where it's like, how?
Yeah.
And I'm annoyingly clever about construction, and she's annoyingly clever about like locking things together. And
Yeah.
she has some treats up her sleeve too. Just wait, kids.
So one of the things that, as we know, is Ethan loves all this clever and he's amazing. My knitting honesty is I'm as lazy as, duck, quack. So of course I often can't be bothered. But what I can be bothered though is I will do a bit of strandy, especially when it's only 2 at a time. I can deal with
That's
2 at
true.
a time. 2 at a time is okay with me. So one of my favorite designers, of course, is Midori Hirose. And
Yes.
she's just put out this new Paul Klee sweater, which is
Inspired by the artist Paul Klee, I'm assuming.
Inspired by the artist Paul Klee. And what I love about this is that it's by the way, this pattern is 23 pages long, people. Now, before you go, what? Why is it 23 pages long? Several reasons. One is it's because it's knitted for children all the way through to adults. And two, she contains really good
instructions. Is it still just one size?
Yeah, and charts, I know. And charts to
color in.
To do this yoke color work. Yeah. And so that was one of the things that she wanted in terms of that entire inspiration of all selecting colors, like a painter's palette, which when we're going to talk about sort of a bit of retro, but that sweater, I think the nice satisfying thing about that sweater is you get to do the yoke and all the color work and the fun stuff, and then once you've got that done, you then rip away with the body and the sleeves because it'll be super quick once it is done. And it is written using a 4-ply yarn, but on a sort of a slightly looser gauge. It is perfect, I think, personally. I mean, so I made up this. Do you like my little Paul Klee box?
Oh, yes. Okay, so that does look like a Paul Klee painting. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Paul Klee, so I might have taken some very useless courses in university, and one of them is art history. So Paul Klee is an abstract painter from the Cubist movement.
Yes.
So if you think about someone like Picasso, but with less social intent behind his paintings, and more of just these ideas of assembling beautiful collages of color. He actually went through a phase of just doing like big blobs of color, which would look exactly like this. Like that looks like a Paul Klee painting. And he had a marvelous way of combining colors together so that they both stacked vertically and diagonally to create different chromatic effects when you looked at them. And he's led to other great painters of today. So the reason that she's included those coloring charts is so that you can Paul Klee it up.
Yes.
And plan your own color adventure.
So she has gone and created a whole bunch of, at the bottom, all of these different color chart options for multiple different colors, different numbers of colors, color suggestions, and even quite.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
good.
It's one of these designs that you would actually have a tremendous amount of satisfaction in doing your yarn selection, your color selection before you actually started the knitting.
I agree.
Yeah.
Makes me think a little bit of like the painting bricks and painting bubbles and honeycomb. And sorry, guys, sometimes both Marie and I kind of lose the plot with the number of names of Stephen's patterns. It's not that we don't love them. It's just like both of us are just like, okay, we get it. We're painting. We've moved on.
Yeah.
But with that Paul Klee sweater, having access to those big, like you could, in theory, use every single color of Little Bandit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like just kind of whack them all in there in the order that speaks to you. If anyone really wants to know the order of operation, Deb has actually worked out an order of operation, and it's how our wall is set up. So I can send Marie a photo of the wall. Because there is according to Deb, there is a correct order, just as a side note, and she means it in a very good way, because it does work. Our wall, if you haven't been into the shop, we have
the wall's amazing.
Wall of color, and it's arranged by Deb because I can't be trusted for good reason. Now, I will say, I think I'm actually wearing a color combination that might be a little unexpected, but that would go extremely well in that particular garment. And this is just,
Absolutely.
as per usual with us, pure serendipity, folks. So if you wanted to do something a little more Art Deco, Art Nouveau-y, and you were thinking about possibly putting together a garment to wear to Cannes or something like that, this is a great color palette for that right there. So we've got Tiffin and Old Beau and Curio and Radiance, and then I would use those four in the yoke over and over again, and I would probably pick up and use Parchment, as I have here, surprise everyone, as my main color. Because as we all know, it would be Parchment or like London Town, because that's kind of my move. And I guess the thing with that Paul Klee sweater is, with the big selection of colors and the brights that we have right now, you can really build those high contrast palettes. And that's really what a lot of his, especially kind of the bulk of his work as an artist, is about. Like, I guess for me, if I was knitting a sweater named after an artist, I would want it to visually look like one of their paintings.
Yeah. And you could also, too, the thing I liked about this as well, whether you do it in Bohemia or Little Bandit, you could, if you've already got stuff floating around, I mean, particularly for the children's sizes, I mean, if you're a bit uncertain, well, knit a kid's one first, you know, do a mini version first before you upsize. And if you've got scraps and stuff lying around, well, you can use some of the scraps, look at what's there, supplement in, have a play around, you know. I think there's even little instructions there on how you can do a little swatch, you know, to see what, to play around with the colors. It's just, I just thought it was really fun. And when I saw it, it just, the thing is like a lot of those colors are coming back. And so, you know, I showed you before with what we had with the Fox Thoughts, right? So, you know, with this color work here. And of course, the first thing.
Oh my.
I know. So let's not look at the design so much, people. We're not quite there. However,
are you sure? Because like peplum puff sleeve, like that's a journey.
Well, no, I'm not quite a peplum puff sleeve kind of gal.
Are you sure?
If you're wondering what I'm holding up, of course, Calf Facet, and you know,
yes, glorious color. I'm pretty sure,
and it just echoes what you just said before, that in knitting there is nothing new.
Yeah, sorry guys.
There is nothing new. And I have a lot of Calf Facet books in my library because I love the inspiration and the colour. And we were talking about construction. You know, these pieces that are well constructed. See, like this has little circles range. But I mean, that is just as relevant today as it was. And when was this? I'll tell you when this was printed in a second. It was printed in... I'll have to look it up. This a while ago. And then, of course, you've got the famous Persian Poppies.
Oh, yes. Oh, they'll never die, that's for sure.
The poppies will never die. So I'm just trying to see when this was printed. It's been hold on. I've had it for a while, people.
I mean, I guess from the flip side of that, you know, if you got a copy of this little yellow book kicking around at home, this is Worsted, a collection curated by Amy Gillet and tragically tech edited by yours truly.
I've got a funny feeling that this might have been printed before you were born.
I'm thankfully many of Calf Facet's contributions stopped before I was born.
Yeah, 1985. I think that predates you, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Now, if we were looking here, so like this is another great option, and you can see that Calf Facet circle inspiration coming through in that motif. Now, of course, the Calf Facet circle inspiration is an adaptation of an earlier Shetland motif, and this is kind of an exploded version of it. So this is the Azure Kenya sweater by Nadia Chrétien-Lechêne, and it comes out really beautifully. And this would be another great place to play with color.
It's like a single Persian poppy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a single Persian poppy sunk into a yoke of kind of more abstract shape around it.
It's almost like if Stephen West and Calf Facet design had a baby, that's what it would look like.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way of describing it. I second that plan. The other thing is you can cardigan that and just slice it open. If pullovers aren't your thing, just remember, cast on some extra stitches. Now, I know a lot of designers recently have been cutting the steek in the ribbing. Don't do that. Knit your ribbing flat. I know, it's disturbing. All sorts of things are happening. But This book does include other great ones, which would be suitable for Bohemia or Bandit DK, like Knitprovisation by Stephen West, which is, again, a beautiful pattern with just some interesting, fun, cool elements in it. And the one that I really wanted to show everyone. So Sylvia Watts Cherry, if no one's been following her, she has decided that whether or not anyone likes it, Intarsia is back. And so she made a contribution to this book that I think is absolutely stunning. It's called Amina, and we've actually had someone knit this in Bohemia, and it is beautiful. So this is the Amina Sweater. So this is a combination of cables and intarsia put together. So it's just the front, so you don't have to be super scared. Now this is a little bit of some advanced intarsia, but the thing is, no intarsia is really advanced. It's all quite straightforward, we promise. And when have Marie and I ever led you astray? I mean, apart from purchasing more yarn, but like, we're helping. So this little beauty is a lot of fun to make. It has a great classic shape to it. There's no tricks or surprises. It's just, again, about that chance to play with color, to really go on your own adventure. And the great part about intarsia is you can use little tiny bits. You don't need a huge amount kicking around to get lots and lots of little ideas in it. Now, if you're all sitting there at home and thinking, wow, boy, oh boy, do I love this whole intarsia discussion, and I really want to take that to the nth degree. Good news, everyone. Nancy Marchant is here to. I don't
She's
think
always here to help. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we
while
should
you're
describe
looking
what
for
she's done.
that, Julie's just asking, why shouldn't I cut the ribbing? It's not that you're cutting the ribbing, Julie, but you should always add a couple of selvage stitches either side if you're looking to steek, instead of just cutting your ribbing straight through without any sort of selvage.
Oh, see, and I don't like to cut at the ribbing regardless. So I prefer to knit my ribbing flat. And then cast on for the steek with selvages, because it is a lot more stable and it doesn't pull in as much. I want to say, and hopefully if Charles is still here, I want to say that that is actually a piece of advice from Alice Starmore, although it could also be from Knitting Without Tears, because at a certain point they all blend together.
And I also know, I think Nikki Epstein was quite big on that too, actually, doing some stuff flat before you went into the round and for steak and stuff.
So if you're ready for a fun intarsia challenge, this is the Canals Poncho. So this is cabled intarsia. Now, there's not a great photo in this book of the other versions. So this is a 2 color version. So the cables are done in one color and the rest of the fabric's done in the other. But, you know, it's Nancy. And if there's one thing that we can tell you about Nancy Marchant, it's that she is smarter than everyone else. So she also came up with this version, which is a 4 color intarsia cable version, because, you know, she was probably bored on a Tuesday and had nothing else going on. So in case you're like you're watching this and you're like, ooh, salivating for the intarsia, and you're like, and I know we both just said that there's nothing new in knitting. Every so often, Nancy Marchant does like to prove us all wrong. I just don't think she can help herself. But if you want to talk bloody clever, I mean, this is the woman who invented brioche knitting. So, like, she knows what she's doing. And if you want to talk, like, something fun and cool, I would say that you can't go wrong with a Nancy Marchant pattern. And just for those of you who are sitting around thinking to yourself, all of that's great, but all I want is a yoked pullover that's not too painful. Speaking of throwing it back, there's a fun 70s motif. This is, of course, from Maxim Cyr. This is Yesteryears. Another great chance to play with color. 2 colors only. Max is not a big fan of like torturing you with your knitting. He does tend to stray towards the knittable pieces because I just think that's what he likes to make.
But I think also too, as we've said many, many times, this is a hobby. It should be fun.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the other nice side of it. So just to round off, HQ, obviously back open at the moment. The wall of colour is up. What exciting things have you got in store?
In store, we have hedgehog fiber. which is always fun and fabulous. We do also have our last bag sale running right now. So every couple of years, we don't do it every year. Every couple of years, we gather all the little bits and pieces, anything less than 10, basically, or occasionally a little bit more. And we pop them all on our table at a 10% discount. So that's an in-store only thing. We are probably about 2 weeks away from our next hedgehog fiber order, which will be a restock of our socks. We can make more fades, more classic hedgehog fades, and also a restock of Aaron and the DK weight. So that's kind of the fun party there. I would love to say that we've got colors sticking around from each dyeing that we're doing of the Rebel and Rebel Light, but we don't. That's a lie. They're gone in 60 seconds.
But that's fun. So the next one of those, of course, will be on Breakfast Bourbon on Saturday at 10 o'clock.
Breakfast Bourbon on Saturday. Now, I happen to think all the colors have been great so far. And we don't know when or if we'll repeat them because we're still in that learning process. So if you see something you like, grab it. And I'm trying to think. I feel like there's other things. Oh, I have ordered a sample of the hedgehog fiber speckled alpaca boucle. Yeah, because I think it's going to be boucle summer. Skip the rosé, everyone. Break out the boucle, or do both and go on a real adventure. You never know what will happen to your knitting if you do that. So I'm going to be giving a good old test out of the alpaca boucle after this next order of hedgehog fiber. I'm going to knit a whole garment, and then I'm going to report back as to whether or not we're doing boucle summer. Because I just, as we know, I have a like pathological fear of mohair. It gets in my mouth. I don't know why. There seems to be something about me that causes it to shed at like 5 times its normal rate. Unless I pull a Kim Hargreaves and I knit that shit held double on a 3mm needle. And not even I have the patience for that. I'm sorry, Kim, you're not watching. But if you were, I'm sorry. If you are looking, just for the record, like for Ethan approved mohair design, you cannot go wrong with Kim Hargreaves. Like, don't get me wrong. It will take you an eternity to knit anything, but it will be beautiful and it will last
forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's things we can say about our girl, but her stuff does not go off.
Well, before I disappear, I saw Guy was in the chat. Hello, Guy. I'm glad you're here because I haven't had a chance to flick you an email. You came out of the draw for last month, so you've won a prize. And I've actually it's sitting on my desk because what I had organized and picked for this month to go out for the prize, I looked at it and I know what Guy likes to knit, and I thought, no, that's not very Guy. So I've actually gone and re-picked something just for you, Guy. So that will hopefully go out in the courier tonight. Oh, yay, yes, yeah. I think you'll like it. So that's going to go out in the courier tonight for you. You're welcome. I suddenly thought I needed to get it out before the school holidays because hopefully you'll actually have some time to knit. Right. And on that note, we're going to get going because he's got stuff there that I want to see. But other than that, we will have probably one more catch up, and then it's going to be like Knit August Nights.
I know.
Stop it.
I know. People are like, "Are you excited?" I'm like, "Yes," because I only have to teach, and then I can just laze about and be a giant loser for the rest of the time when I'm up there.
Totally. He gets to laze about, and then he gets to come home and sleep in my shed.
Yeah, it's the best.
It's the best. It's all good. It's all good. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. As many of you may or may not know, I will be back here again tomorrow for a very special diaries at 10 a.m. So yes. So
what's happening?
Yes, new yarn. So that will be. I know. So that will be up tomorrow 10 a.m. So I will be here. So do come and join me for that. And otherwise, yes, of course you know what's coming. And of course, have a great weekend. If I don't see you then, take care.